Have you ever faced a moment in life when everything seemed to fall apart? A time when the weight of the world felt so heavy that even taking the next step seemed impossible? Maybe you've asked yourself, why is this happening to me? Or, how can I possibly get through this? These questions aren't uncommon. They're a natural part of the human experience. But have you ever thought about why some people remain calm, unshaken, even in the most challenging situations? What's their secret? Imagine this. A tree standing tall in the middle of a storm. Its branches sway violently, its leaves scatter, but its roots hold firm. While everything around it may be chaotic, the tree remains grounded because its foundation is strong. In many ways, life's difficulties are like that storm. And just like the tree, we too can learn to stand firm no matter how fierce the winds of life may blow. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, a place where timeless teachings meet everyday struggles. If you're looking to discover the key to staying unshakable in the face of life's toughest challenges, you're in the right place. In today's video, we'll explore practical insights from Buddhism that will help you uncover your inner strength and guide you toward peace, no matter the situation. Before we dive deeper, a quick reminder. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers subscribe. So please, if you enjoy the wisdom we share, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us continue creating content for you. Now, resilience is not about suppressing pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about understanding the true nature of suffering and learning how to respond to it with clarity and strength. Buddhism teaches us that suffering is inevitable, but it also provides tools to transcend it. Life will test us. It's not a question of if, but when. However, what truly matters is how we respond to those tests. Buddhism begins with the concept of dukkha, or suffering. It acknowledges that life is filled with challenges, but it also reminds us that our pain doesn't have to define us. By understanding that suffering is a part of existence, we take the first step toward rising above it. Instead of resisting life's difficulties, we learn to accept them, and in doing so, we begin to free ourselves from their control. In the face of adversity, the mind often becomes restless, caught in a loop of fear, anger, and despair. Buddhism encourages us to observe our thoughts rather than becoming consumed by them. By practicing mindfulness, we create a space between ourselves and our struggles, a space where clarity and strength can grow. Through compassion, we learn that our hardships are not unique. They're part of a shared human experience. This understanding connects us to others and allows us to face life's challenges with a lighter heart. Just like the tree that bends in the wind but never breaks, we, too, can cultivate the inner strength to withstand any storm. Stay with us as we uncover the secrets of resilience and discover how to transform life's worst moments into opportunities for growth and peace. The nature of suffering, understanding the storm. Life, in its very essence, is full of change. Every moment brings something new, and yet, nothing stays the same. This constant shift, this ebb and flow, is what brings both joy and pain. But do you understand why suffering exists? Why, no matter how hard we try, we seem to encounter moments of despair, loss, and heartache. At first glance, suffering can seem like an enemy, something we must fight against, something that shouldn't be a part of life at all. We try to avoid it, deny it, or push it away, thinking that if we ignore it long enough, it will disappear. But here is the wisdom. Suffering is not the enemy. It is a teacher. Suffering shows us where we are clinging, where we are attached to things that cannot last. It reveals our fears, our desires, and our expectations. Imagine, for a moment, the storm. The sky darkens, the wind howls, and the rain pours down in sheets. It feels like the world is being torn apart. But after the storm passes, the earth is often more vibrant, more alive. The storm has cleared the air, nourished the ground, and made space for new growth. So it is with suffering. It clears away the clutter of the mind and opens up space for something deeper, something more meaningful. In Buddhism, suffering is called dukkha, and it is seen as an inherent part of life. Dukkha doesn't just refer to physical pain, but also to the dissatisfaction that arises from attachment. We attach ourselves to our ideas of how things should be. We attach ourselves to people, possessions, and expectations. But everything in life is impermanent. People change, things break, our desires grow, and our expectations never seem to match reality. The more we cling, the more we suffer. Think of the time when you've lost something precious, whether it was a loved one, a possession, or even an opportunity. In that moment of loss, there's a feeling of emptiness, a feeling as if a piece of your world has been torn away. That emptiness, that pain, is a form of dukkha, but it is also a message. Nothing is permanent. Our attachments create a false sense of security. When those attachments are disrupted, we feel shaken. But in reality, the world has not changed. It is our expectations that have shifted, leaving us unsteady. The Buddha teaches us that dukkha is not something we can avoid. It's a natural part of the human experience. What we can control is how we respond to it. Instead of resisting the storm, we can learn to embrace it. Instead of fighting against the pain, we can learn to accept it with mindfulness and compassion. The storm, in its fury, is not something to be feared. It is something to be understood. When we resist suffering, we create more pain. This is what the Buddha calls the second arrow. The first arrow is the painful experience itself, a loss, a failure, a disappointment. But when we add resistance, judgment, or anger to that experience, we create a second wound. For example, imagine that you are walking and you accidentally step on a sharp rock. The pain of stepping on the rock is the first arrow. But if you then become angry with yourself for making the mistake, or angry at the rock for existing, that anger is the second arrow. It is unnecessary suffering. The key is to accept that the first arrow will come, but we can choose not to shoot the second one. This understanding of suffering is liberating. It gives us the freedom to experience life as it is, without the added burden of unnecessary resistance. Instead of constantly trying to avoid discomfort, we learn to embrace it as a part of the journey. The storm will pass, and the sun will shine again. The pain, too, will fade with time. But the lessons it brings can stay with us forever. One of the most powerful teachings of Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths, which guide us in understanding and overcoming suffering. The first truth is the reality of dukkha, that suffering is a part of life. The second truth is the cause of suffering, attachment and desire. The third truth is the cessation of suffering, the end of attachment. And the fourth truth is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. This path is a guide to living in a way that reduces suffering and brings about peace. Let us look deeper into these truths. The first truth, the truth of suffering, is clear. Everyone experiences it, rich or poor, young or old, healthy or ill. The second truth, however, is where the challenge lies, attachment. We believe that happiness comes from the things we can hold on to, the material possessions, the relationships, the success. But these things, as much as they bring us joy, are temporary. No matter how hard we try to hold on to them, they will change. When we identify our happiness with these fleeting things, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The third truth, the cessation of suffering, is not about escaping reality. It is about realizing that suffering arises from attachment and learning to let go. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about people or things, but it means we stop expecting them to fulfill us completely. We learn to appreciate the beauty in each moment without demanding that it last forever. We can experience joy, but without clinging to it when it fades. The fourth truth, the Noble Eightfold Path, is the practical guide to ending suffering. This path involves right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Each step on this path helps us to detach from the things that cause us pain and to cultivate qualities that lead to peace and clarity. Understanding suffering is the first step in overcoming it. Once we recognize that suffering is a part of life, we can stop resisting it. Instead of seeing it as something that should never happen, we begin to see it as an opportunity for growth. The Buddha didn't teach us to avoid suffering. He taught us how to understand it and, in doing so, transcend it. When you face a challenge in your life, instead of asking, "Why me?" or "What did I do to deserve this?" ask yourself, "What can I learn from this?" The storm has come, yes, but it will pass. The question is, will you grow from it, or will you remain stuck in resistance? The choice is yours. In the next part, we will explore how to develop the inner strength necessary to face life's storms without losing our peace. Understanding suffering is just the beginning. Now, we must learn how to respond to it with wisdom and grace. Stay with us as we continue this journey towards inner resilience. Anchoring the mind, cultivating mental stability. In the vast ocean of life, the mind is like a boat. Without a strong anchor, it drifts aimlessly, pushed by every wave of emotion and thought. In times of turmoil, when life's storm rages around us, we often find ourselves caught in the current of our thoughts, struggling to stay afloat. Yet, just as a boat finds stability with a secure anchor, we too can find inner peace by anchoring our minds. The mind is powerful. It shapes our experiences, coloring everything we see and feel. But too often, it is like a wild horse, racing from one thought to another, never resting. This restlessness can lead us into a spiral of confusion, anxiety, and stress. But just as the wild horse can be tamed, so too can the mind be trained to find stillness amidst the chaos. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing attention to the present moment, fully and without judgment. When we are mindful, we are not lost in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. We simply observe what is happening in the here and now, allowing our thoughts and emotions to come and go without getting caught up in them. This is the first step toward anchoring the mind. Imagine this. You're sitting by a river, watching the water flow. The river represents your thoughts, and the water flows constantly, always moving, always changing. If you try to grab hold of the water, it slips through your fingers. But if you simply watch the river, letting it flow as it will, you can remain calm and still. In the same way, your thoughts are like the river. They come and go, but by practicing mindfulness, you can learn to watch them without becoming overwhelmed by them. At first, this may sound difficult, even impossible. Our minds are often so busy, filled with worries, distractions, and endless chatter. But with practice, we can train ourselves to be less reactive and more aware. It's like learning to swim in the ocean. At first, the waves feel overwhelming, but as we build our strength, we learn how to ride the waves, rather than being tossed around by them. One key to mindfulness is understanding that we don't need to change our thoughts. The goal isn't to stop thinking, but rather to observe our thoughts with clarity and without attachment. Thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They may come in many shapes and sizes, but just as the sky remains unchanged, so too can we remain unaffected by our thoughts. We do not need to identify with them. They are simply passing through, and we can choose to watch them without getting caught up in them. This practice of mindful awareness creates a space between ourselves and our thoughts. It's in this space that we find true freedom. When we stop identifying with our thoughts, we stop letting them dictate our emotions and actions. We become more than our thoughts. We become the observer, the one who is not swayed by the winds of our mind. But mindfulness isn't just about being aware of our thoughts. It's also about cultivating a deep awareness of our body, our emotions, and the world around us. The mind and body are closely connected. When our mind is restless, our body often feels tense or uneasy. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice these physical sensations and emotional reactions. Instead of pushing them away or reacting to them, we can simply observe them with curiosity and compassion. Through this practice, we learn to recognize the subtle signals our body and emotions send us. When we feel stress, anxiety, or anger rising, we can pause and check in with ourselves. How does our body feel? Are our shoulders tight? Is our breath shallow? By tuning into these sensations, we can catch ourselves before we react impulsively. This is how we begin to anchor ourselves in the present moment, instead of being swept away by our emotions. Another aspect of anchoring the mind is learning to cultivate patience. In times of difficulty, we often want the pain to end immediately. We seek quick fixes, distractions, or ways to escape the discomfort. But true resilience comes when we can sit with the discomfort without rushing to change it. Patience allows us to stay grounded in the present, to allow life to unfold as it will, without forcing outcomes. It's like planting a seed and patiently waiting for it to grow, trusting that the process will unfold in its own time. Patience is not passive. It is active, mindful waiting. It is the willingness to face life as it is, without needing to control or manipulate the situation. This is where mental stability comes from. By cultivating patience, we learn to trust ourselves and the process of life, even when we don't understand it fully. As we anchor our minds, we also begin to cultivate equanimity, a state of inner balance that allows us to stay calm in both good times and bad. Equanimity is the ability to remain undisturbed by the fluctuations of life. It's like a still pond that reflects everything around it, yet remains unchanged. No matter what happens, the pond doesn't react. Similarly, with equanimity, we can face life's challenges with calmness and clarity. Equanimity doesn't mean we don't feel emotions. It means that we don't let those emotions control us. We can experience sadness, anger, joy, or fear, but we don't let those feelings define us. We allow them to come and go, like waves on the ocean, without being swept away. This inner stability is the foundation of resilience. It allows us to stay grounded, even when life's storms are at their strongest. This mental stability is not something that happens overnight. It takes consistent practice and effort. But just like any skill, the more we practice, the stronger we become. Over time, we begin to notice that we are less affected by the ups and downs of life. We become more present, more aware, and more at peace with ourselves and the world around us. One of the most powerful tools for cultivating mental stability is meditation. Meditation is the practice of training the mind to focus, to let go of distractions, and to rest in the present moment. Through meditation, we can begin to quiet the constant chatter of the mind and find stillness. Just as a calm sea reflects the sky, a still mind reflects clarity and wisdom. Meditation doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as sitting quietly for a few minutes each day, focusing on your breath. With each inhale and exhale, you return to the present moment. When your mind wanders, you gently bring it back to your breath, without judgment. Over time, this simple practice helps to strengthen the mind, like lifting weights to build muscle. Another important practice for anchoring the mind is self-compassion. In times of difficulty, we can be our harshest critics. We beat ourselves up for not being stronger, for not handling things better. But self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with kindness, especially when we are struggling. Instead of criticizing ourselves for our emotions, we acknowledge them with understanding and care. This creates a foundation of acceptance, where we can face life's challenges without adding unnecessary suffering. Self-compassion is not about excusing our behavior or avoiding responsibility. It's about recognizing that we are human and that it's okay to struggle. It's about treating ourselves with the same care and kindness that we would offer a dear friend. When we practice self-compassion, we create an environment in which our mental stability can grow. As we anchor our minds, we also begin to develop a sense of trust in ourselves. Trust is the belief that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. It's the confidence that, no matter how difficult the situation, we have the strength to face it. This trust doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from within. It comes from knowing that we are resilient, that we have weathered storms before, and that we can do it again. In Buddhism, there is a concept known as the Four Noble Truths, which teaches that suffering is a natural part of life. But it also teaches that we have the power to transcend suffering through understanding and practice. By anchoring the mind in mindfulness, patience, equanimity, and self-compassion, we can transform our experience of suffering into one of peace and strength. As we cultivate mental stability, we become more like the tree in the storm, able to bend without breaking, able to remain rooted in the face of adversity. We may not be able to control the winds, but we can control how we respond to them. And when we respond with clarity and strength, we become unshakable. The practice of anchoring the mind is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong journey of self-discovery and growth. With each step, we become more resilient, more present, and more at peace with ourselves and the world around us. Through mindfulness, meditation, and self-compassion, we create the foundation for a stable, unshakable mind. And in doing so, we create the possibility for a life of true peace and freedom. The strength of letting go, detachment is freedom. In life, we often hold on to things, whether it's a person, a situation, or an expectation. We think that by holding on tightly, we can control the outcome. But what if I told you that the key to staying unshakable in the toughest times lies in letting go? It may seem strange, but detachment is not about losing something. It's about gaining freedom from the things that hold us back. Imagine a bird flying in the sky. The bird is light, free, and unburdened by anything. It flies with ease because it isn't tied down. Now, picture yourself as that bird. When you let go of the unnecessary weight in your life, whether it's old grudges, attachments, or the need for control, you too can fly freely. You may find peace in releasing the things you thought you couldn't live without. This is the power of detachment. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from attachment. We cling to people, objects, ideas, and outcomes, believing they define us or bring us happiness. But in reality, these attachments only create more suffering. Why? Because everything in life is impermanent. People change. Situations shift. Even the things we own will one day fade or break. When we hold on too tightly, we set ourselves up for pain. We resist the natural flow of life. Detachment does not mean we stop caring or become indifferent. It means we care without clinging. You can love deeply without needing to control or possess. You can work hard toward a goal without obsessing over the outcome. The secret is to enjoy life's experiences without attaching your happiness to them. You begin to see life as a passing moment, a beautiful dance of change where nothing stays the same. Let me share with you a story. A man was walking along a path when he came across an old monk sitting by a river. The monk was calmly gazing at the water, looking at peace. The man, troubled by his life struggles, asked, "Master, how do you remain so calm in a world full of chaos?" The monk smiled and said, "I hold nothing tightly. I let the river flow and accept what comes, knowing it will pass." The man asked, "But isn't it hard to let go of the things that matter?" The monk replied, "The more tightly you hold, the heavier your burden. When you let go, you find peace in the flow of life." In this simple story, the monk reveals a deep truth about detachment. By letting go of the things we think we can't live without, we can experience a freedom we never imagined. We stop fighting against the natural ebb and flow of life, and instead, we start to float along with it. This idea of detachment is not about avoiding responsibility or caring less about others. In fact, it is quite the opposite. Detachment allows us to care more deeply because we do so without fear or expectations. When we let go of needing to control, we create space for true compassion. We stop seeing others as extensions of ourselves and start seeing them as they truly are, free and independent, just like us. Think about it this way. When you are attached to a particular outcome or person, your happiness is tied to them. If things don't go as planned, you feel upset, angry, or defeated. But when you detach, you can approach situations with an open mind and heart. You do your best, without the fear of failure or disappointment. You allow things to unfold as they will, knowing that whatever happens, you will remain whole. Let's also take a moment to reflect on what detachment is not. Detachment does not mean disengagement. You don't stop participating in life. You stop letting life dictate your emotional state. It is possible to live fully, to be present, and to enjoy all the beauty life has to offer while remaining detached from the outcomes. This is the paradox of detachment. You gain more by holding less. You can still care deeply, yet remain unaffected by external circumstances. One way to practice detachment is by recognizing and accepting the impermanence of all things. Everything in life is in a constant state of change. People come and go. Jobs, homes, and possessions all change hands. The seasons shift, and even the world itself is in a state of constant transformation. When we understand this, we begin to loosen our grip. We see that everything is temporary, and this knowledge frees us from the fear of loss. Buddha himself taught about the impermanence of life. He spoke of how all things are in a continuous cycle of birth, growth, decay, and death. This cycle is natural and unchangeable. But by accepting this truth, we free ourselves from the desire to hold on forever. We embrace life as it comes, in its full range of emotions, experiences, and changes. And in doing so, we create space for a deeper sense of peace. Now, let's take a moment to look at detachment in your own life. Is there something, or someone you are holding onto tightly? Perhaps it's a past relationship, a specific outcome you're striving for, or a particular idea about how your life should be. The more tightly you hold onto these things, the more difficult it becomes to remain at peace. You may even notice that your attachment to them causes you to suffer more than you realize. If you want to experience true freedom, start by asking yourself, what am I holding on to that no longer serves me? Identify what you are attached to and gently let it go. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can start with small moments of release. Maybe it's letting go of a grudge you've been holding on to, or releasing the need to control every aspect of your life. Over time, these small acts of letting go will add up, and you'll begin to notice a shift in your heart and mind. Buddhism teaches us that detachment is one of the keys to freedom. It's about realizing that we don't need anything outside ourselves to be whole. The more we practice detachment, the more we come to understand that everything we need is already within us. We are enough, just as we are. And when we realize this, we stop chasing after things that never truly satisfy. We can live a life of peace and joy, rooted in the present moment. As you continue on your journey of letting go, remember that you don't need to be perfect. It's okay to struggle with detachment at times, but each time you practice, you move a little closer to freedom. Let go of expectations, let go of control, and let go of fear. When you do, you'll find yourself standing strong, just like that tree in the storm, unshakable and at peace. Detachment is not about rejecting life. It is about embracing life with an open heart, free from the need to possess, control, or manipulate. It is in this openness that you will find true peace. The more you practice detachment, the more you will experience the deep inner strength that allows you to remain unshakable, no matter what life throws your way. Let go, and you will see how life becomes lighter, freer, and more peaceful. The middle path. Balance in adversity. Imagine walking along a narrow path, surrounded by steep cliffs on either side. If you lean too far to one side, you risk falling into the abyss. If you lean too far the other way, you might slip off the edge as well. The key to safety is to find the middle ground, a place where you stay balanced and steady, no matter what's happening around you. This is the essence of the middle path in Buddhism. In the chaos of life, when everything seems overwhelming, it's easy to either go too far in one direction or retreat completely. We might either react impulsively to situations, driven by emotions like anger or fear, or we might withdraw entirely, avoiding confrontation or difficulty. But both extremes cause us to lose our center. The middle path teaches us to find balance, not in avoiding challenges, but in responding to them with calm and clarity. When life tests you, it often feels like you have two choices, one extreme or the other. Perhaps you're facing a tough situation at work, in relationships, or within yourself. You might feel the urge to either fight back, react, and retaliate, or to run away and shut down. Both of these choices come from a place of attachment, either to your pride, to your comfort, or to your expectations. The middle path, however, doesn't require you to give up your values, but rather to approach each situation with a clear mind and an open heart. In the teachings of the Buddha, he describes the middle path as a way to live between two extremes, indulgence and self-denial. Life is not about satisfying every desire or depriving yourself of everything you enjoy. It's about understanding your desires, learning from them, and not allowing them to control you. When you act out of attachment or fear, you are pulled toward the extremes. But when you are centered in the present moment, you can make decisions that come from a place of wisdom. To walk the middle path, we must cultivate the ability to observe our reactions. It's not about avoiding feelings or denying emotions, but rather about not being overwhelmed by them. Imagine standing in front of a raging river. The water is rushing, the current is strong, and you might feel like it's pulling you in. The middle path is about standing firmly on the riverbank, observing the current without letting it sweep you away. You understand the water is there, but you don't need to be carried by it. Life's challenges will always come. No one can escape them, but the way we respond to them is what defines our peace. If we react from fear, anger, or desperation, we become lost in the storm. But if we approach each challenge with balance, without rushing into extremes, we can weather any storm. The middle path teaches us that the key to resilience is not fighting against the winds, but learning how to stand firm in the middle of them. At times, life might present a situation where it feels like you have no choice but to either run or fight. But the wisdom of the middle path is that you do have a choice. You can pause. You can breathe. You can choose to respond with calmness instead of reacting out of fear. The middle path doesn't demand that you become passive, but rather that you stay present. You act with mindfulness and wisdom. You act with balance. This balance doesn't mean everything in life will be perfect or easy. In fact, it's often in the moments of greatest difficulty that the practice of the middle path becomes most important. Imagine walking through a thick fog. It's hard to see, and the world feels confusing. But instead of rushing, instead of panicking, you take small, steady steps, one step at a time. Each step is a choice. It's a decision to remain grounded, to not be swept away by the uncertainty, and to trust that eventually the fog will lift. The middle path is about learning to live with the flow of life, not against it. It's about finding a balance between doing and being. Sometimes you need to act. Other times, you need to simply be present and observe. You don't always have to push or strive. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in letting go and allowing things to unfold naturally. In Buddhism, the concept of equanimity is closely tied to the middle path. Equanimity is the ability to stay calm and even-minded, regardless of what happens. It's the ability to stay grounded in the face of loss, disappointment, or even success. Equanimity doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. Rather, it's the ability to hold your feelings without being controlled by them. It's about being at peace with life, as it is, without needing it to be different. When you are able to practice equanimity, you find a deep peace that isn't shaken by external circumstances. You learn that life is constantly changing. It's like the weather. It's always shifting, always moving. Some days are sunny, some are stormy. But the weather doesn't define who you are. You are the sky. You are the vast space that can hold both the sunshine and the storm without being affected by them. Another important aspect of the middle path is the idea of non-attachment. In Buddhist teachings, attachment is seen as the root cause of suffering. We get attached to outcomes, to people, to our own ideas of how things should be. But attachment only causes pain when those things inevitably change. The middle path teaches us to embrace life without clinging to it. We experience life fully, but we don't let it define us. Non-attachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply but without holding on. You love, but you don't possess. You work, but you don't identify with the outcome. You engage in life, but you don't let it control you. The key to balance is in recognizing that all things are temporary, and that your peace doesn't depend on the conditions of the world around you. This middle path isn't always easy to walk. At times, it requires great strength to resist the temptation to either indulge or withdraw. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. With every step you take in the direction of balance, you create a space of peace within yourself. And in that space, you begin to discover that you are stronger than the storm. The middle path isn't just a philosophy, it's a practice. It's a way of living that requires awareness, mindfulness, and presence. It's about being in the moment, no matter how difficult it may be. It's about not getting caught up in the past or the future, but living fully in the now. By practicing this middle way, you find the strength to remain calm and steady, even when life's challenges seem overwhelming. To walk the middle path is to understand that you don't need to escape life's difficulties. You don't need to fight against them. You don't need to avoid them. You simply need to meet them with balance, with clarity, and with the strength that comes from knowing you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. When you learn to walk the middle path, you find that life becomes a lot less overwhelming. Instead of feeling tossed around by every challenge, you learn to stand firm, grounded in your own inner strength. And that's when you realize that no storm is too strong for you to weather. Compassion in chaos, finding strength in kindness. In life, it's easy to feel overwhelmed when chaos surrounds us. We often search for strength in the most unlikely places, trying to control the uncontrollable or pushing ourselves harder, hoping to find peace through sheer willpower. But in the middle of life's storms, there is something simpler, something far more powerful that we can turn to: compassion. You might ask, How can compassion help when everything around me is falling apart? The answer lies in the profound simplicity of caring for others, even when you're struggling yourself. Compassion isn't just a way of feeling for others. It's a way of seeing the world that shifts our perspective from fear to connection. When we experience pain or hardship, it's easy to become isolated in our suffering. We feel like we're the only ones going through it, trapped in our own minds. But the truth is, suffering is universal. Every being on this earth experiences some form of pain, loss, or hardship. When we open ourselves to this truth, we begin to realize that our suffering is not unique. Nor is it something to hide or be ashamed of. It is something to share. Compassion is the bridge that connects us to others, even in the darkest of times. When we practice compassion, we move beyond our personal struggles and recognize that everyone has their own battles. This doesn't mean that our pain becomes less significant, but it allows us to see that we are not alone. This realization is liberating. It frees us from the belief that we must carry our burdens in isolation. Imagine, for a moment, a time when someone showed you kindness when you felt at your lowest. Perhaps it was a simple gesture, a smile, a listening ear, a kind word. That small act may have felt like a lifeline in that moment. Compassion has the power to heal, not just the person who receives it, but also the person who gives it. When you show kindness to another, something shifts within you. Your heart opens, your mind calms, and you find yourself more at peace. Now, you may wonder, how can I be compassionate when I feel so empty or lost myself? This is where Buddhism's teachings offer us profound wisdom. The practice of compassion doesn't require us to be perfect, nor does it ask us to have all the answers. It simply asks us to be present, to witness the suffering of others without judgment, and to respond with warmth and care. By extending compassion, we begin to heal not just the other person, but also ourselves. Compassion is a circle. It flows both ways. In the midst of chaos, there are countless opportunities for us to practice compassion. It may not always be easy, especially when we're overwhelmed by our own challenges, but it is in these very moments that compassion becomes most powerful. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, we can choose to respond with understanding and empathy. Rather than pushing others away, we can open our hearts to them. It is this choice that shifts our energy, that transforms chaos into an opportunity for growth. The Buddha taught that metta, or loving kindness, is one of the most powerful practices we can cultivate. Metta is the practice of wishing well for others, especially those we may find difficult or those who are suffering. It begins with a simple intention: may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering. Over time, this practice expands from others to ourselves, reminding us that compassion is not only for those around us, but also for ourselves. In moments of chaos, it is easy to forget about ourselves. We become so focused on the storm that we neglect our own well-being. But by practicing compassion for ourselves, we begin to restore the balance within. Self-compassion allows us to accept our imperfections, to forgive ourselves for our mistakes, and to treat ourselves with the same kindness we would offer to a dear friend. When we nurture ourselves with compassion, we build the strength we need to face life's challenges with resilience. The act of compassionate listening is another simple but powerful way to bring peace in times of turmoil. When we truly listen to another person, without judgment or interruption, we create a space where healing can take place. This doesn't mean we have to offer solutions or advice. It simply means we are present, offering our attention and care. In this space, both the speaker and the listener experience a moment of calm, of connection, and of understanding. There is also the practice of Tonglen, a Tibetan Buddhist practice that teaches us to transform suffering through compassion. In Tonglen, we breathe in the suffering of others and breathe out peace, love, and healing. This practice may sound strange, but it is deeply transformative. By taking on the suffering of others, we realize that we are all interconnected. We also realize that the more we care for others, the more we begin to heal ourselves. The suffering of the world is not something to avoid or run from. It is something we can embrace with compassion, turning it into an opportunity for collective healing. In the chaos of life, compassion helps us remain grounded. It shifts our focus from ourselves to others, and in doing so, it expands our hearts. When we give compassion, we receive compassion. When we offer kindness, we invite kindness into our lives. This is the way of the Buddha, the way of unconditional love and care. By practicing compassion, we move from being reactive to proactive. Instead of allowing the chaos around us to dictate our emotions and actions, we take charge of how we respond. Compassion becomes our anchor in the storm, keeping us calm and centered when the world around us is in turmoil. We no longer need to wait for things to settle down before we can find peace. Peace becomes something we create within ourselves, moment by moment, through our compassionate actions. In every situation, we have the choice to respond with compassion. Whether it's with a friend in need, a stranger suffering, or even with ourselves during times of hardship, compassion has the power to transform. It doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes, a simple smile, a kind word, or a gentle touch can make all the difference. And the more we practice, the more natural it becomes. As you move through life, remember that chaos will come. It always does. But when you face it with compassion, you tap into a strength that cannot be shaken. You are not defined by the storms you face. You are defined by how you choose to navigate them. Through kindness, you become unshakable. So, take a moment to reflect. What would it look like if you chose compassion in the face of your own struggles? How would your life change if you began to see every challenge as an opportunity to show care and kindness to others? When you embrace compassion, you discover that you are stronger than you ever imagined. You find peace not by avoiding the storm, but by standing firm with an open heart, ready to weather whatever comes your way. The power of acceptance, transforming pain into peace. When you face pain in your life, do you ever find yourself resisting it? Do you try to push it away, hoping it will disappear? Or perhaps you question why you have to experience it in the first place. These reactions are natural, but they often make the pain last longer and become more intense. What if I told you that by accepting pain, instead of resisting it, you could transform it into peace? Imagine you are holding a hot coal in your hand. What happens if you try to hold it longer, hoping it won't burn you? It will only cause more suffering. But if you drop the coal, the pain stops immediately. Acceptance works in a similar way. When you accept the pain, the suffering doesn't have to control you. You don't fight against it. Instead, you release it. In Buddhism, this idea is known as acceptance. It's about embracing life as it is, with all its difficulties and pain, instead of resisting what is happening. We can't change the fact that we experience suffering, but we can choose how we respond to it. The more we fight against pain, the longer it stays. But when we accept it, it begins to lose its power over us. There is a simple but powerful practice in Buddhism called mindfulness. It teaches us to be fully present with our thoughts, emotions, and experiences without judgment. This means that instead of pushing away the pain or becoming overwhelmed by it, we observe it. We notice it, we acknowledge it, and we allow it to be there without getting caught up in it. By practicing mindfulness, we learn that pain is just a feeling. It doesn't define us. When you are mindful, you can see that pain is a temporary experience that will eventually pass. And as you practice this, you become less attached to your suffering. You no longer see it as something that controls your life, but rather as a passing cloud in the sky. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the pain. It doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. It simply means you are allowing yourself to experience it without fighting it. When you resist pain, it only grows stronger. But when you accept it, you free yourself from its grip. It's like a child who cries out for attention. The more you ignore them, the louder they cry. But when you listen, acknowledge, and accept, the crying naturally fades away. It's important to understand that acceptance doesn't mean you give up or stop trying. It doesn't mean you let bad things happen to you without taking action. Acceptance is not about resignation. It's about acknowledging the truth of your situation, without denial, without anger, and without resistance. Once you accept the truth of your circumstances, you can respond from a place of clarity and wisdom. Think of acceptance as the key to peace. When you resist pain, you close the door to peace. But when you accept pain, you open the door to transformation. Pain is not the enemy. It is a teacher. By accepting it, you allow it to show you something deeper. You begin to understand that your pain doesn't define you. You are not your suffering. You are something much greater. There is a beautiful story in Buddhism about a woman who lost her child. In her grief, she went to the Buddha and asked him to bring her child back. The Buddha listened to her and then told her to go to every household in the village and ask for mustard seeds. But there was one condition. The mustard seeds must come from a house that has never known death. The woman searched and searched, but no matter where she went, she found that every household had known death, whether it was the death of a loved one, a pet, or a neighbor. Through this, the woman realized that death is a natural part of life, and in that understanding, she found peace. She accepted the reality of loss, and in doing so, she was able to heal. The story reminds us that suffering is a shared experience. Everyone faces pain and loss at some point in their lives. You are not alone in your struggles. By accepting this universal truth, you can begin to let go of the burden of resistance. You no longer have to fight against life. Instead, you can face it with open arms, ready to learn from whatever comes your way. In life, you will encounter all sorts of challenges. Some will be physical, some emotional, and others may be spiritual. You may face illness, loss, disappointment, or failure. But no matter what comes, remember that the key to staying unshakable is not in avoiding pain, but in accepting it. When you accept pain, you free yourself from its power. You stop seeing it as something to fear and start seeing it as a natural part of life. Through acceptance, you also learn to let go of attachment. We often suffer because we are attached to how things should be. We want things to be perfect, we want to control our circumstances, and we want everything to go according to plan. But life is not always like that. It's unpredictable, ever-changing, and full of surprises, both good and bad. By accepting this, you free yourself from the constant struggle to control life. You stop trying to hold on to things that are not meant to stay, and in doing so, you create space for something new and better to come into your life. Buddha taught that attachment is one of the root causes of suffering. When you are attached to something, whether it's a person, an outcome, or a possession, you are afraid of losing it. This fear creates anxiety and stress. But when you accept that everything in life is impermanent, whether it's happiness or sorrow, love or loss, you can let go of this fear. You no longer need to hold on so tightly to the things that bring you comfort. Instead, you can appreciate them in the present moment, knowing that they are fleeting. In accepting life's impermanence, you also begin to appreciate life more deeply. You realize that every moment, every experience is precious. When you stop resisting pain, you begin to see that every part of your life, both the good and the bad, has value. You learn to savor the small moments, to find joy in the ordinary, and to accept the challenges as opportunities for growth. As you continue on the path of acceptance, you will begin to notice a change within yourself. You will no longer be shaken by every difficulty. You will approach each challenge with a sense of calm, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the inner strength to handle it. Acceptance helps you to stay grounded, to remain unshaken, even when the world around you is falling apart. The more you practice acceptance, the more peaceful your life becomes. You begin to trust in the flow of life, knowing that everything happens for a reason. You begin to see that your pain is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced. Through acceptance, you find the peace that lies beyond the pain. And in that peace, you become unshakable. In the end, acceptance is not about resigning to a life of suffering. It's about embracing the truth of your situation and finding peace in it. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and trusting in life's natural flow. By accepting life as it is, with all its joys and sorrows, you free yourself from the cycle of suffering and open the door to lasting peace. And that peace, once found, will be the foundation of your resilience, making you unshakable in the face of any storm. The art of patience, weathering the storm gracefully. Patience is often misunderstood. It's not simply about waiting for something to happen or enduring discomfort with a stiff upper lip. True patience is a profound understanding of time, space, and the ebb and flow of life. It is the art of remaining composed and calm, no matter what happens around you. In the whirlwind of life, patience is the anchor that prevents us from being swept away. It is not about enduring life's storms, but about learning how to flow with them. Imagine you are standing by a river. The The water is moving rapidly, swirling around rocks, branches, and debris. At first, it seems chaotic, but with time, the river's current finds its own course. It doesn't rush or force its way. It simply flows, taking what it needs, leaving behind what it doesn't. Patience is like that river. It knows that the obstacles in its path are not permanent. The river doesn't stop to question the rocks or the branches. It simply flows around them, knowing that they will eventually move. This is how patience works in our lives. When life presents difficulties, the urge is to resist, to fight, to force our way through. But this only creates more turbulence in our minds and hearts. When we learn to be patient, we accept that there are things beyond our control, and we allow life to unfold at its own pace. This doesn't mean we become passive or inactive. It means we act with a clear mind and open heart, without rushing or forcing the outcome. In Buddhism, patience is considered one of the paramithas, or perfections. It is the practice of enduring difficulties with a calm and clear mind. But patience is not just about tolerating life's challenges. It's about understanding that every moment, every experience, is an opportunity for growth. Even the most difficult situations can teach us something valuable. Patience allows us to see these lessons, instead of simply wishing for the storm to pass. To be patient is to trust in the process of life. It is to trust that everything happens for a reason, even if that reason is not immediately clear. In a world that values instant gratification, patience may seem like a lost art. But true peace comes from understanding that not everything can be rushed. Just as the fruit ripens in its own time, so too do we. When we rush through life, we miss the beauty of each moment. When we are patient, we give ourselves the space to experience life fully, to learn from every experience, and to grow at our own pace. The Buddha often spoke of the importance of patience. He taught that patience is not merely about waiting quietly. It is about responding with wisdom and compassion, no matter what happens. In times of difficulty, we may feel tempted to act out of anger or frustration. But the Buddha reminds us that these emotions only add to our suffering. Instead of reacting impulsively, we are encouraged to pause, to breathe, and to reflect. When we do this, we create a space in which wisdom can arise. Patience is not passive. It is an active practice of mindfulness. When we face challenges, our first instinct may be to resist, to complain, or to withdraw. But these reactions only create more suffering. Instead, patience asks us to stay present, to engage with the situation with an open heart and mind. It doesn't mean we suppress our emotions or ignore our struggles. It means we approach them with equanimity, accepting that challenges are a natural part of life. In times of stress or anxiety, patience teaches us to breathe. When we feel overwhelmed, we can pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and remember that this moment is not forever. Just as the river continues to flow, so too will our difficulties pass. No storm lasts forever. No feeling, no matter how intense, is permanent. When we can remind ourselves of this, we begin to cultivate patience. One of the greatest obstacles to patience is our tendency to cling to expectations. We often have a clear idea of how we want things to unfold, and when they don't go according to plan, we become frustrated. But life does not follow our plans. Life follows its own course. Patience is the wisdom to understand that we do not control everything. We cannot control the winds, the storms, or the changes in life, but we can control how we respond to them. By letting go of rigid expectations, we allow ourselves to flow with life, rather than resist it. The Buddha taught that patience is not just about dealing with external situations. It is also about dealing with our own internal struggles. We often become impatient with ourselves, especially when we are trying to change or grow. We may feel that we are not progressing fast enough, or that we are failing in some way. But the path of personal growth is not a race. It is a journey, and each step is important. Patience with ourselves allows us to grow at our own pace, without comparing ourselves to others or rushing the process. A powerful practice to cultivate patience is mindful breathing. When we are caught in the grip of impatience or frustration, we can pause and take a few deep breaths. With each breath, we bring ourselves back to the present moment. We remind ourselves that we are not our thoughts, and that our emotions are not permanent. As we breathe, we release the tension and the need to control. We simply allow ourselves to be, just as we are. Another way to practice patience is through compassion. When we are patient with others, we show them the same kindness and understanding we would want for ourselves. This practice of compassion softens the heart and helps us see the humanity in others. When we are patient with others, we create a space of acceptance and understanding. This not only benefits them, but it also benefits us, as it helps us release judgment and open our hearts. Patience teaches us that there is no rush. We do not need to hurry to the next moment or the next achievement. Life is happening now, in this very moment. When we are patient, we slow down and savor the present. We become more aware of the small details of life, the sound of the wind, the warmth of the sun, the taste of food. These are the things that we often miss when we rush through life. Patience helps us become present to the beauty of the world around us. Ultimately, patience is about finding peace in the midst of uncertainty. Life will always present us with challenges, and there will always be things we cannot control. But when we approach life with patience, we learn to navigate these challenges with grace. We learn to weather the storms of life without losing our center. And in doing so, we discover that peace is not something we need to find. It is something we already possess within us. We only need to be patient enough to recognize it. So, the next time you find yourself facing a difficult situation, remember the river. Remember that life's challenges are temporary. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to flow with the current, rather than fight against it. With patience, you can weather any storm and emerge stronger, wiser, and more peaceful on the other side. Karma and resilience. Understanding cause and effect. Imagine a stone thrown into a calm pond. The stone sinks, but the ripples continue to spread across the water, touching every corner of the pond. This is how our actions, both good and bad, ripple through our lives and the lives of others. In Buddhism, we call this karma, the law of cause and effect. It teaches us that every action, thought, and word we express has consequences, not only for ourselves but for everyone around us. The concept of karma is often misunderstood. Many people think of it as a strict system of punishment and reward, where every bad deed is met with suffering and every good deed with a reward. But karma is much more subtle and profound than that. It is not a system of retribution, but rather a natural law of cause and effect. The energy we put into the world, the choices we make, all ripple out and return to us in ways we may not always see. You may wonder, how does this relate to resilience? The answer lies in understanding that our current circumstances, even the challenges we face, are not random. They are the result of our past actions, thoughts, and decisions. In this moment, we can look back at the choices we made that brought us to where we are today, but we can also take comfort in knowing that the future is still in our hands. By understanding karma, we gain the power to shape our future. Let's take a simple example. Think of a garden. If you plant seeds of kindness, patience, and generosity, you will eventually see those seeds grow into beautiful flowers, fruits, and trees. But if you plant seeds of anger, resentment, and fear, what will you harvest? Our actions today are like the seeds we plant in our garden. If we want to cultivate a life of peace, strength, and resilience, we must be mindful of the seeds we plant with our words, thoughts, and actions. When life feels overwhelming and the weight of the world seems unbearable, it's easy to feel helpless. We may wonder, why is this happening to me? But if we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, we realize that we have the power to change the course of our lives, starting right now. Understanding karma is the first step in this process. We may not be able to change the past, but we can control how we respond to it, and we can make choices today that will bring us peace tomorrow. Resilience, in the Buddhist sense, is the ability to meet life's challenges without being broken by them. But this doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. True resilience comes from understanding the law of karma and accepting that every challenge is an opportunity to learn and grow. When we face difficulties, we can either see them as burdens or as valuable lessons. The way we respond to suffering determines whether we allow it to defeat us or whether we allow it to strengthen us. Every thought we have, every action we take, every word we speak sends ripples into the world. These ripples return to us in ways we cannot always predict. When we act from a place of kindness, compassion, and mindfulness, we are creating a future that reflects these qualities. Conversely, when we act out of anger, fear, or ignorance, we are setting the stage for more suffering, both for ourselves and for those around us. The power of karma is not something to fear, but something to embrace. By understanding the cause and effect of our actions, we become more mindful of the energy we put into the world. This awareness is what allows us to stay grounded and resilient, even in the face of life's toughest challenges. When we understand that every action we take has consequences, we begin to act with greater wisdom and intention. We realize that we are not victims of circumstance, but active participants in shaping our own destinies. In difficult moments, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we have no control over our lives. But this is where the wisdom of karma offers us great comfort. No matter what has happened in the past, no matter what challenges we face today, we always have the power to choose how we respond. Our thoughts and actions in this very moment are creating the future we will experience. Karma teaches us that nothing is permanent. Our current suffering, no matter how intense, is temporary. The same law that brings us suffering also brings us the opportunity for healing and growth. Just as the ripples in the pond eventually fade, so too will our struggles. But only if we respond with wisdom, patience, and compassion. It's important to remember that karma is not about fate or destiny. It's not about being punished for past wrongdoings, nor is it about being rewarded for past good deeds. It's about understanding that everything we experience is a result of our actions, and that by changing our actions, we can change our future. When we realize this, we unlock the true power of resilience. So, when life tests you, remember this. Your response to suffering is the most important factor in your growth. Each moment is an opportunity to plant new seeds, seeds of love, wisdom, and mindfulness. And just as a garden takes time to grow, so too will the fruits of your labor. Every small act of kindness, every moment of patience, every breath of mindfulness you take today is shaping the future you will live tomorrow. Karma is not something to fear. It is a tool for transformation. By understanding the law of cause and effect, we can begin to live with greater intention. We can choose to respond to life's challenges with resilience, knowing that our actions today will create a better tomorrow. In this way, we take full responsibility for our lives, and in doing so, we gain the freedom to shape our own destinies. Remember, the power to be unshakable lies within you. It is in your hands to choose how you respond to the challenges you face. When you act with awareness and compassion, you are planting seeds of resilience that will help you rise above whatever comes your way. Embrace the law of karma, and you will find the strength to endure and thrive, no matter what life throws at you. Becoming unshakable, a life of peace and power. In life, there comes a time when we must ask ourselves, who am I, really? Not the roles we play, not the labels we wear, but the true essence of who we are beneath all the noise and chaos. The storms of life will continue to come, but if we have cultivated inner strength, we will remain unshakable. Today, we reach the final step of our journey, where we become the masters of our own peace. You see, life is not about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain, to stand tall in the face of adversity, and to walk through fire without getting burned. In the teachings of Buddhism, we are reminded that everything is impermanent, even the storms we face. This means that no matter how heavy the burden may seem, it will eventually pass. The question is not when it will end, but how we will respond to it in the moment. Think of a mountain standing strong against the winds and the rain. It does not bend. It does not break. It simply stands firm, grounded in its essence. You are like that mountain. Your true nature is not defined by what happens around you. The storms of life may try to uproot you, but if your roots are deep enough, they will never succeed in shaking you to your core. We've explored many aspects of resilience in the past few parts, but now, it's time to understand the final truth. You are already unshakable. The very essence of your being is untouched by the outer world. All that is needed is to awaken to it, to remember who you truly are. And this awakening begins with mindfulness, the ability to be present, to observe without reacting. When you face a challenging situation, take a deep breath. In that moment of stillness, pause. You have the power to choose your response. Will you react in anger, fear, or frustration? Or will you choose peace, understanding, and wisdom? The more you practice this mindfulness, the more you will find yourself remaining calm, no matter the circumstances. This is the power of acceptance. Accepting life as it is, without resistance, without clinging. This doesn't mean giving up or resigning yourself to suffering. It means recognizing that life is a series of moments, some filled with joy, others with pain, and each moment is fleeting. By accepting each moment, you free yourself from the burden of trying to control it. Buddha taught that suffering is a part of life, but it is also the pathway to enlightenment. When we face suffering with awareness, we transform it. What once seemed like a burden becomes a teacher. Each challenge, each storm, is an opportunity to grow stronger, to cultivate wisdom, and to deepen our compassion. But there's more to it than just acceptance. True power comes from letting go. We hold on to many things in life: our past, our expectations, our fears. These attachments weigh us down, creating an illusion of stability, when in reality, they are the very things that prevent us from finding peace. The more you let go of the need to control, the more you'll experience the freedom that comes with simply being. Buddhism teaches us the art of non-attachment. This doesn't mean not caring, but rather freeing ourselves from the need to possess or control. When we let go of attachment, we release the grip that suffering has on us. We stop fighting against the natural flow of life, and in doing so, we allow peace to enter. The wisdom of emptiness also plays a role in becoming unshakable. Emptiness is not a state of nothingness, but a recognition that nothing in this world is permanent or fixed. Everything is interconnected and constantly changing. By understanding emptiness, we free ourselves from the need to cling to things, ideas, or outcomes. We see that life is a dynamic, ever-changing dance, and we are simply part of it. Another key to becoming unshakable is compassion. When you act with compassion, not only toward others but also toward yourself, you align with your true nature. Compassion allows you to face life's challenges with kindness, rather than judgment. When you offer compassion to yourself, you no longer need to prove anything. You simply are, and that is enough. True peace comes when you stop seeking it outside yourself. It's always been within you, waiting to be discovered. When you stop looking for peace in external circumstances, you will find it within your own heart. Your mind will quiet, your heart will open, and you will become a beacon of light in the darkness. As we come to the end of this journey, let us reflect on the power we all carry within. The power to remain calm in the face of chaos, the power to choose our response, and the power to stay grounded in our true nature. You are unshakable, not because life is easy, but because you have learned to live with awareness, acceptance, and compassion. Let the storms come. Let the winds blow. You, like the mountain, will stand firm. And in your stillness, you will find peace. In your strength, you will find power. The storms will always pass, but the peace you cultivate within yourself will remain, unshakable and eternal. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. We hope that these teachings have helped you find the unshakable peace and strength within. Remember, the wisdom of the Buddha is always available to guide you. Whenever you feel lost, whenever you feel shaken, return to your breath, return to the present moment, and return to your true nature. You are unshakable. You are peace. You are power. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. If this video has inspired you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Wisdom Woven, so that more people can find their own unshakable peace. Stay strong, stay mindful, and always remember, you are the storm and the calm within it.